There are others who have shown their respect, their affection, their deep love in different ways. Some have given me hundreds of gold and silver coins. What am I going to do with them? Aha! Now you see, you're all crowded here and sweating. Therefore, we need a bigger space. The only thing I ask of any one of you, make sure, I am 76 this year. God knows how many years she has given me, or how many more days or months is left for. All I want you to do, every one of you who has come here from long distances to pay your respects and remember the lineage of Gurus now, even if I am not here, make sure you complete the temple. Now, the next generation must take things over, take the responsibility and learn to work with each other. That's the most important. If you let your petty egos come in the way and say, oh, I don't want to go, then it will never get built. Each one of those bricks, each one of those pillars in the temple should tell a story about sacrifice and compromise and accommodation. Otherwise it will never come to. Okay, so my request is, humble request is, make sure that the temple is built and our Devi has a permanent home that will last for 10,000 years. Thank you very much.
Namaskaram, Sri Gurubhyo Namah. The Rochester Temple, Rajarajeswari Devi, had its beginning first in Wickham Boulevard, Sodus Point, New York. In 1991, the Stroudsburg Ashram gave the Vigrahams of Sri Rajarajeswari, Mahaganapati and the Shivalingam to us and was installed by my Guru at 33 Park Circle. We moved her to the present property because of lack of space. In May of 1998, and as many of you know, we have quickly grown out of the space. And we have decided that a permanent temple structure to house the Devi and the other murtis in the temple is all but essential, so that the next generation that is growing up practicing the Vidya will be able to practice it in the same format that my esteemed Guruji introduced, meaning accessible to all. Anyone who wants to learn the Vidya and learn the rituals of Sanātana Dharma, this temple will allow their growth in it. So with this in view, we are appealing for funds, whatever amount that all of you or collectively or individually can afford. I hope to see all of you in the temple and during the construction of the new temple. Namaskaram. Thank you very much.
Sri Matre Nama. Namaskaram, everyone. Welcome back to our Sacred Rites and Rituals of Sanatana Dharma learning series, which is a joint presentation by the Sri Vidya Temple Society, Rochester, New York, USA, and Ashtanga Yoga Mandir, Sri Lanka. Next week will be Guru Purnima. For more than 40 years, Ayya and Amma have opened their hearts, their home, and the temple to all the devotees who wish to share in the worship of the Divine Mother. Not only have they established the Sri Vidya Temple and helped it grow into an international center of learning and spirituality, Ayya and Amma has opened the gates of Sri Vidya by giving mantra diksha to hundreds of sincere seekers and has established more than 200 satellite pidams throughout the world by bestowing empowered Sri Yantras on his students. With the new Rajagopuram, the granite temple, taking form to provide a permanent home for the Devi, Ayya and Amma have ensured that the teachings and traditions are preserved for years to come. The temple will be celebrating Guru Purnima next week, and we hope to see you all there. A few housekeeping reminders. We kindly ask everyone to keep all microphones and cameras turned off throughout the session. Please use the question form to share any questions you might have pertaining to the content that has been discussed so far. For those viewing our live stream, for our question form can also be found on our webpage, which is srividya.org/AYM-lectures. At this time, we will hand it over to Ayya to begin today's session. Thank you.
गणाना अन्त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पदानश्चिन्वन्नोतिभिश्रीदशादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। My humble pranams to my esteemed Guruji, Annapurnamba Sameda Srila Sri Amardhanandanada Saraswati of Devipuram, India. I prostrate before him in front of his feet and worship that he sits in my open lotus in the heart and speak through me. Namaskaram, everyone. The last time we were talking about Uttara Kriyas, that means rituals after death, rituals connected with death. Something very interesting has happened. I have been referring to various books written on the subject. And guess what? I am yet to find any of the books giving the details of such ceremonies for anybody who is not of a Brahmin origin. It's interesting. They divide the Brahmin class into various divisions. Vadamal, in the case of Vaishnavites, Vadakalai, Tenkalai, and each of them have their own rituals for the dead. But I'm yet to come across anything that says these are the rituals for the people who are born as Kshatriyas or Vaishyas or Sudras. Now, we left the last discussion that we had. Let us say some of the 3 million or so Indians and 500,000 Sri Lankans, many from Singapore, Malaysia, Mauritius, Reunion, these islands, South Africa. Only a small percentage of them are Brahmins who can use these books, Apara Priyogam, how to perform the last rites and the rites following the cremation. Now, over the course of the 2 weeks since the class, since the last, I have been receiving telephone calls and messages asking, when we live outside of India or Sri Lanka, let us say, in my own case, New York State, USA. Once death has occurred, you have to inform the authorities. Usually they call a doctor, they call a hospital, and the emergency technicians would come and they would see whether there's a possibility of performing CPR or giving emergency resuscitation exercises. But the body does not belong to the family. I mentioned this last time. And in the state of New York, there is a law that says you cannot dispose of the body before 36 hours after the death has passed. In places like England, Wales, you have to wait for a coroner to certify that no foul play has taken place. And sometimes it will take 3-4 days for the coroner to show up at the hospital. Even in England, if a death occurs at home, the hospital technicians will come and remove the body and take it to the mortuary, where it will be placed in a freezer. Now, many people have asked me the question, okay, let us assume that I am a Brahmin and 12 days of Ashaucham has to be observed. How do I observe Ashaucham? Because before the coroner comes to these hospitals, it may be 4 days. In India, we are used to cremating the dead the day they passed away. So the question does not arise how many days when should we start observing? There is no mention in the Shastras, in the Apara Prayogams that I have been referring to, on any of this, because they didn't assume that you were going to go to another country and die there. In later books, there are 1 or 2 sentences written. People who are living externally in another country, you should observe such. But they don't realize that the cremation cannot take place on the same day, because you will be criminally liable if you try to dispose of the body. And no crematorium, which is a commercial enterprise, no funeral home, no funeral director will sign the death certificate. And if you cannot cremate the body or dispose of the body without this. For instance, in England, if a person has died, sometimes it might take 10 days for them to release the body to the family so that they can take care of the religious observances. So when does Asavasam begin? And the general statement that after cremation, when the son comes home, the period of 12 days begins, cannot apply here. So, in such cases, if you are a Brahmin, if the body has taken, if they have taken 10 days to release the body, 10 plus 12. After you cremate the body and come, you have to, until the cremation, until the body has been disposed of, the expired person is believed to be present in all the ceremonies, all the visitations, everything in the form of a spirit. So, counting of the Asavasam will begin when the day the person died. But the pujas leading up to Sabanti Karanam on the 12th day or 11th day will begin the day the cremation takes place. And when the cremation takes place, you see, for Sabanti Karanam, these rituals are specifically for Brahmins. Now, there are karmic Brahmins and people who are born into a Brahmin household. There is no specification in those books that I have referred what to do with the karmic Brahmins. I guess it will be left to the priest who comes to do the ritual, if he is available, to decide. So you have to be ready for things like that, because when an event like this happens in a family, everybody will be, first of all, they would be in a state of shock that a death has occurred. And these days, if the death has occurred because of COVID-19, the family cannot even be by the side of the person to offer milk or Ganga Jalam. So you see, we are faced with a whole set of new circumstances, and the practice has to be there. Otherwise, you would just have to take the body and cremate it. Couple of days ago, a gentleman passed away in India, and I was told by the family, they would not let them, in India, of course, you bring the body home. They did not want the body to come to the house. So it had to go straight from the hospital mortuary to the crematorium. See, so even in India, they're facing this. Now, some of the rituals that I have been looking at the first 11 days of puja that had to be done. For the Brahmins, there's homam. And umpteen number of rules and regulations that the karta, that means the person who cremated the person, where he should sit, how many darbas should be there, which direction he should be facing, what kind of, he has to begin 2 homams. You can't have this at this particular moment in India, however orthodox you may be. If you have died of COVID, you will not be allowed to come anywhere near the body. So we have to come by a ritual or rituals that can be commonly used. Not elaborate 4.5, 5 hour long rituals, because you don't have the luxury of time anymore. So going back to the thing, the day the death occurs, Asavacham begins. It's called Todakku in Tamil. And every day in the house where the person lived and passed away, Tiruvachakam, Shiva Puranam, Rudram, Garuda Puranam can be read. You can choose from any one of this. If you are a Saivite, there's nothing soothing and healing like Tiruvachakam. Now this is the first day of the 12 days that are going to follow. That may be, like I told you, 10 days after the death. A friend of mine, his father's body was not released for 2 weeks. So until that, he was probably in a mortuary in the hospital, frozen. That's the reality. That's the way it is now. You cannot change any of that. Now, so the day the body is released and the cremation has been performed, you start. Because the dead person is now said to be moving around in a disjointed body, which is not physical. Some of us can see it, others cannot. But until the body is disposed of, it will be hovering around, trying to get back into the body with its 9 openings, because that is the only life that it has known. So, every day, a portion, a new form is being formed by the priest coming in and performing the pujas. He is creating an astral body that is said to, according to these documents that I have been looking at, that it can journey to Yamapattanam, which is supposed to be some 300 yojanas hence. Even the precise measurements are given. And every day, a little bit of the person, head is formed, then the limbs will be formed, then the thorax will be formed, then the thighs will be formed, like that. A spiritual body, astral body is created. Once that astral body is created, it is going to now journey to Yamapattanam with the messengers of Yama. Now it says, there are many stories about devotees of Shiva or Vishnu having been waylaid, or they come and intervene, not allowing the Yamadutas to take you to Yamapattanam, but taking you to Kailash or taking you to the abode of Vishnu. And there are stories about these individuals. But as a human being, when you are here, whether that has happened or not, you don't know. You have to go through the ritual because that is your duty. After the cremation of the body, day one, we came up to the point where the body was the eldest son or the karta who holds a sandalwood stick which is already lit and who holds the kollikudam and walks anti-clockwise around the bier. And 3 holes are punched and the water is taken and sprinkled on the coffin. Now here, depending on who you go to, some funeral homes will allow you to open the casket in the crematorium. Others will say no, sorry. See, so at every point you have to be able to compromise and adjust, accommodate. Then once he drops the kollikudam down, it will shatter into a million pieces and all the water will flow out. That water is the sum total of all the attachments that the departed has had while he was in the body. And that is considered to be the release of him. Before he went out to drop the kollikudam, you can't drop it in the marble floors in the crematoria. Here, you have to go to the garden. These details we don't bother about in India because wherever it is, we will drop it and go. He would have, without looking at the body, he would have had to place that sandalwood stick in the region of the chest. In India, of course, there's no problem because the body is always open. Somebody will guide you to put it there. After this is done, the person, the karta who placed the stick on that person's chest will walk away without turning around. And he is taken home. I am told in those old days, where in the open crematoria, there will always be a well. He will bathe there and go with wet clothes to the house. By the time he has finished his job at the crematorium and he has come to the house, the women folk in the house would have bathed, cleaned, washed everything that was there. In India, they'll wash the floor and place a mortar, a pestle across. A pestle is called an ulakkai. It is usually made of either coconut stem, coconut trunk, or palmyra trunk. And it will have 2 metallic attachments to the end to keep the thing together. The person who has cremated, who has performed the cremation, the karta, will come and he will walk over that pestle. When he walks over, the ladies in the house will perform arati to him because now he has come after consigning the body of his father, mother, etc., anybody, to the fire, to Rudragini, as in the case of Saivites. In that situation, the body is the Purna Ahuti that is offered to Rudra. When he comes, after the arati is done, they will give him neem leaves, verpamile, to kind of, place it on your mouth and you bite it and you have to feel the bitter taste. Then they will ask you to go and take a bath. Now, in these countries, there is no separate well. So you have to go through the house and get into the bathroom to bathe. And you bathe with the clothes on, everything. And in the bathroom, they would have haldi, that is turmeric. You place that turmeric on your head because that's considered to be, and it is the oldest antiseptic. And you bathe and you change into clothes, fresh clothes. And the clothes that you wore to cremation, which are new, brand new, you give them off to one of these guys, you know, the barber, the dhobi, people who have come to help, you give them, people who are in a lower station of life, and that is for them. Then after that, the persons who are near and dear to the family would invariably bring food. That food is not to come into the house before the body has left it. Because I have seen in a cremation that I performed here in New York State, while I was getting down, after parking the car, getting down from the car, the body was in the house. They got special permission. I was walking towards the house. Food was already arriving in the house. Now that food cannot be eaten. But who is going to listen to these things now? People, the Karta himself has asked me, with my experience, whether he could go to the restaurant, eat before he goes home after cremation. And I was kind of speechless for some time, because the way we grew up, you are expected to know all these things. Your parents will tell you. In my case, my mother taught me this. So there are these little things that you have to learn. So after eating, now before eating, before the food, wherever it has come from a friend, from a distant relative, from a neighbor, no difference. Remember, when the person died, over the right shoulder, there should be a lamp lit with one wick. That lamp is moved to the place of convenience. If the lamp is facing south, very much better. There will be a photograph of the person who has passed away. The lamp is lit and it is burning. It has to be kept lit without it going off until Sapindi Karanam has happened. Now, in front of the lamp and the picture, whatever food that has come, one has to serve a little bit in a container, not a full plate, mind you, little bit in a container, and it is to be placed in front of the photograph. And water is to be sprinkled, and a glass of water or a tumbler of water is placed there. Because the belief is that this is still a disjointed soul. Remember, Sapinti Karana has not taken place. It will want food. So that offering is done. Now, let's say the person died in England and the body was not released for 14 days. Asavasam begins with the first day, and no cooking can take place in the house. If that person has died, and even if he is in hospital still, you cannot cook, you cannot so much as boil water to make a cup of tea. You're not allowed. So relatives and friends who are in the know, they will make arrangements. I'm sure anybody has some, at least a few relatives or brothers or sisters or friends. If you don't have anyone else, they will have. This food is now to be continued all the way until Sabinti Karanam has done and Subham has been performed. Excuse me. So, now, remember, in England, the body has been released after 14 days. offering of the food must start on the day he died. In India, it is on the day he was cremated, died and cremated. Here, it is a separate issue, but whatever food that comes, but until the cremation is done, the 12-day puja cannot happen. That is, if you are a vegetarian, like most people are from Sri Lanka, Colombo, Singapore, Mauritius, right, South Africa, they are non-vegetarians. So 31 days plus the 14 days. So from that first day, death has occurred, whether it is in a hospital or anywhere in these countries that we live in, offering of the food must start on the first day, when you hear that the person has died. Even if the person has died in hospital, you would still light a lamp and make sure that that lamp does not go off even in the night for all of the time. That is about, it'll be about 50 days before you can do any ceremony. Now, here is another situation. Whether the person is in India, or whether the person died in India or any other country, if it has been an unnatural death, that means the person met with an accident and died, or he was struck by lightning and he died, or somebody shot the fellow. All these are unnatural occurrences, where they have realized that the grieving period will be longer. So the 7-day Karanam ritual will be done 6 months after. But they will do away with the custom of not cooking any food after the 31st day, if he is a non-vegetarian. See, there are so many of these adjustments that you have to learn. You can't insist that, no, I will, until Ayya said that until 7-day Karanam is done, no cooking. Who is going to bring food for you for 6 months? So these practical difficulties you will be faced with, but you have to make sure that you understand why these things are done. The longer period is given so that the family that has been struck with a tragedy that was not expected at all, and the shock and the grieving will last for a long, long time. You give them the opportunity. For 31 days at least, you can come. The friends can come, and friends and relatives can come and feed the family and make sure that the most affected person in the house eats. Now this has happened. Now, only in the case of a suicide or an accidental death or something like that, the 7-day Karanam ritual is postponed. But everything else, 5th day after cremation, is a ritual called Asti Sanchayanam. Asti Sanchayanam, where you go and collect the, see, the day 5 is Asti Sanchayanam. That Asti Sanchayanam, this Aparaprayoga books give you an elaborate ritual that will probably take about 3.5 hours. And that day, you are supposed to take 5 things that can be eaten. Puri, rice, puffed rice. Then appam. Appam is a sweet meat that is made. Remember, you can't make it in the house. Somebody else has to make it. appam, and fruits, and a coconut. These things have to be taken. And the ashes are to be collected. Usually an earthenware pot is taken and the ashes and remnants of the bones, usually the thigh bone, which is the longest bone in the body, remnants will be there. They will take them and put them into the pot. And it is tied. Now in India and in Sri Lanka and Malaysia and other places, that is brought to the house and kept out in the garden until the ashes can be disposed of properly. I don't know how they deal with it in India now. Anyway, to the best of my understanding, that ash is not supposed to be in the house because already the pujas are going on. And Asti Sanjanam, if the person has decided that he will go to Kasi to drop this, will not, it'll, the taking the ashes out of the house will be delayed. So the Sabinti Karanam has no meaning. You have to remember these. And this is taken out in this country and in other Western countries. I advise the families, because they have many of them don't have a backyard because they'll be living in a condominium. There's no backyard for them. I tell them, ask the funeral home, they will hold it for you. When my mother-in-law passed away, that's what I did. I went to Kasi and other places with the Singaraveli family who had also lost their son, and this coincided with that. They will hold it for you and they'll give you a certification. You don't have to take a whole lot. The human ash, when a body burns, on the average, there's 5 pounds of human ash. On the average, 5 pounds. Of course, if the fellow was like Shaquille O'Neal, probably there'll be 7 pounds or 10 pounds. But this will be taken and they'll label the thing and hold it for you, and they'll give you a certification to say that these are human remains, the ash. So when you are going to Kasi, you have to go to the airport, swing by the funeral home, pick up that vial of ash and the certificate and take it to the airport. That's what I did. I took a small, very tiny portion of it. But I remember the family that I traveled with, they carried all the ashes to India. So Asti Sanchanam, 5th day, this will happen. You go to the thing with the 5 offerings that I told you, you offer those things, you collect the ash, take it, and these Apara Prayogams tell you which direction to face, how many darbas you have to put in front, how many other Brahmins you have to take to the thing, and all that is there. Forget about those. You take the appam and you take the puri and the other stuff and collect the ash and take it to. Now, living in New York State, the closest body, largest body of water is Lake Ontario. You have to get permission. You will have to rent a boat or hire a boat and take the ashes about a mile inside and drop it in the water. You cannot drop it on the banks of the lake. About 2 or 3 years ago, we read that in New York, in a particular place, all the Indians who live in New York, Delaware, New Jersey, they have been dumping ash after ash, and the ashes have washed ashore. And so much so that the local authorities, the local towns, the town council decided that they were going to prevent this from happening. So they were asked to go into the sea and drop it. We cannot afford to contaminate nature just because we have suffered a loss, and we cannot afford to be on the wrong side of the law and on the wrong side of the community in which we live. So this ash is taken. If you are going to take a portion of the ash to Kasi or to Rameshwaram to dump it in the sea, get a small portion of it and keep it in the funeral home, dump the balance in the water. When that person, the Karta who has done this ceremony, he will put the things that he took, the puri and the appam and things like that in the water, and milk is poured into the water, and the ashes are dropped in the water. That person will come back and come into the house exactly the same way on the day of the cremation. So they will have to have that vessel. He has to cross it. He has to chomp on neem leaves and go bathe, wear freshly washed clothes and come. And when only after that is done, when the food is there, he has to serve the food to the departed and then consume the food. In our country, I don't know whether it is popular in India. I haven't heard. On the 8th day after cremation, not death, 8th day after cremation, there is a ceremony that is called Ettu Kumbudrathu. That is, on the 8th day, it's called, directly translated, it means 8th day worship. That day, the relatives and friends who are giving you food, for the time being, when you are not able to cook the food yourself, whatever food stuff that the person liked to eat while he was alive or while she was alive has to be made and offered. Very interesting. I won't tell you where. There was a priest in whose house. Chicken was taken to the house because the people cooked it and took it there. So, at some point or the other, the guy may have eaten it. And I remember when my wife's cousin died in England, and we went there, and they requested that we stay for the 8th day also. So we stayed. The room was full. They had a picture on a chair, and on the floor, small dishes, small containers containing whatever she liked to eat. It filled the room. And you are supposed to take it and give it to somebody. You're not supposed to eat it. Sometimes the family will eat it. It depends on how orthodox they are and how careful they are about this. Now, after the day 8, the day 8 has nothing to do with you chanting Tiruvasakam from the 1st day to the 12th day. If you are a vegetarian, from the 1st to the 16th, or to the 21st day, or to the 31st day. When I lost my sister this year, in their household, every day, somebody will come there and chant Shiva Puranam and sing Tiruvasakam and go, every day. So this was arranged by the time. Now, I think we have come to the 8th day after death. I will stop here because it is 8:45. Questions?
Last week you asked us to remind you to ask this question: why are women not allowed to go into the crematorium?
Okay. The beliefs that we have are not that the crematorium is just bereft of anything. There are various entities, various energy bands in that crematorium. And they are given names of deities, and people have even drawn pictures of them. One such entity is Smashana Bhairava. Out of the 8 types of Bhairava, Kala, Kapala, Kalpanda, Krodana, Ugra, Unmatta, Chanda, Samhara. There are subsets, and this Samhara Bhairava is in the Smashana Bhairava lives in the crematorium. Usually back home, in all our crematoria, there are neem trees. And nobody will touch anything from that neem tree because these entities are supposed to be there. Similarly, female deities like Smashana Kali, Smashana Tara, Neela Tara. So many deities are there, they live. And how do they survive? When a body is cremated, when the fire catches on, the stomach, the coelomic cavity, the stomach cavity, the skin covering the stomach cavity will collapse, will rupture. When it ruptures, the body fluid that is collected will fall, and because that contains fat molecules, it will burn along with everything. Because once the body catches fire, you can't extinguish it easily. And gases issue from it. You know, when the thing breaks, when the skin breaks, you hear that. And CH3, methane gas, is what is burning most of the time. It is said that these entities will breathe, and that is their food. Now, because of the hormonal structure of ladies, the dominating ones are estrogen and progesterone. And one does not know at what point in their monthly cycle they are when this happens. If they go to the crematorium, they say some of these entities will get into them through the hair. And then there are problems. I used to think that these were old days stories. For no other reason, because I could not get my hands around and my belief system around these deities that are there. I happened to cremate the father of one of my associates. And in that crowd, the granddaughter of this person who had passed away had come from a prestigious college. Was doing a PhD or master's or something like that. One of her friends accompanied her. And this person was there. Of course, before, it is customary for me to explain at least the basic rituals, what is there. And traditionally, women are not allowed to go anywhere near the crematorium. Veedi vare manavi. Only up to the road, she can come. But like everything else, there are exceptions to this rule. Suppose the couple had no children and nobody else there. The wife is permitted to do the crematorium rites and set fire to the. If nobody else is there and a daughter is there and the daughter wants to do it, you have to allow. She can do it. Right? If nobody else is there and nobody is willing to do it and a friend is willing to do it, the friend can do it. These things are allowed. So I said traditionally, ladies don't come to the crematorium. It will be prudent if you go home and prepare the home for the person who is doing the cremation. Modern youth being the way they are, the granddaughter of the person who died said, I am not going anywhere near the crematorium because I had known Ayya from the time I was born. And we have always listened to him. The friend said, no, it's all old-fashioned stories. I'm going. She said, you want to go, you go. I'm not coming. So she was there. I saw her. They finished the rituals were done and all that, and they returned to college, to university. These two were roommates. Every day in the night, suddenly if the granddaughter woke up, she would see her bed was empty. And she was not there. And in the early morning, about 5:30, when she wakes up, she's there. This was going on for some time. And they were both in the same group, so they attend lectures together. In the lecture theater, this girl was not paying any attention to the teachers. She would be looking out the window, and she had a faraway look. And slowly, within a period of 2 weeks, the chit-chatter and all the rest of it had ceased. She won't, and if you ask her something, she will grudgingly answer. They were very worried. So one day, this granddaughter went and told the hostel warden that this person, I see her missing sometimes when I wake up. I don't know what's happening. So the hostel warden set up she told the granddaughter to come and stay with her. They were in the same corridor. Middle of the night, they heard the door open, so they both peeked out. This girl is in her pajamas, she's walking out. And it was like somebody sleepwalking. They followed her. She left the hostel, crossed the road, walked up about a quarter mile, and there was a cemetery there. She went and sat on the gravestones. And she's talking to herself. She's having conversations with somebody. They can't hear anything, but she's talking. When she's talking, they can hear. And she's laughing suddenly. And about 5 o'clock in the morning, she came back and got into bed. Now, the behavior in the lecture theaters became severe. Suddenly, she would burst out laughing in the middle of a lecture, or look out through the window, or yell at somebody. They took her to a psychiatrist. Nothing happened. They took her to Hammersmith Hospital in England, which is one of the foremost hospitals in London. Nothing. Finally, they remembered that I had told, and the granddaughter remembered that she went to the crematorium. So immediately I had a call from someone, I had a call from the family, and they asked me what to do. What can we do now? It is now beyond any preventative measures. So I said, yeah, you can go. You can go to Chaitanyananda Temple in Kerala. Chaitanyananda Bhagavati Temple. That temple is famous for things like this. So parents were fairly well-to-do people. They were both doctors, so they must have had enough money. They engaged a nurse to fly with them, sedated this girl and flew to Kerala, and took her to this Chaitanyananda temple where they performed something called Guruti Puja. Guruti is blood. And they stayed there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't remember what time frame. And they came back, she was fine. And she had the decency to write a letter to me saying, apologizing for not listening to what happened. After that, she was normal. And they had told her that there were two entities inside her. They had to get her out. Well, the modern generation might not believe this, but I do. But this is first-hand information. Okay? One question, it took the whole time. Is it okay?
We do have more questions if you're okay with it.
Yeah,
one more question.
Okay, ask me one more question.
The next question I have from one of our viewers is, if you never had a children or you died young, who is supposed to perform the annual Shraddha Tarpanam?
If you never had children or you died young, who is supposed? There will be descendants of your parents. Who is going to remember? If you had no children, if that person parents had no children, they would have had other relatives around. If nobody does it, a friend can perform it for you. At least one time, if they do the Gaya Shraddham sequence, then for 167 generations, you don't have to bother. So somebody has to do it, but the Shraddha Tarpanam has to be done. I don't care which community you were born in. Do you believe that in the labor class in India, where there are rickshaw walas and cycle rickshaw walas and day laborers and all that, have you heard of them performing Shraddham? Sometimes in the movies they talk about it. They say, this is today my grandfather's thing and I had to go to the temple. So maybe some communities do, but you have to do the Tarpanam. Otherwise, the Pidir Devatas are not the ones who are going to hurt you. Your mother or father or your uncle or great granduncle is not going to curse you. But there are deities who supervise, who oversee the function of these Pitrus. And if they don't perform the thing properly, whoever who is alive, the descendants will be cursed. So even if the person has no children and you died young, some relative somewhere will be there. And somehow the events will come to pass in such a way that this person will either go to a priest or go to an astrologer and ask what is wrong. 99% of the time, they will say you have Pitru Sabha. That means there may be relatives that you had no idea existed, and those people have died. So you have to do it. When they do that, when you get to know the information that there's Pitru Dosham, you have to do the Tapra. And the easiest one would be to do it in Gaya. End of session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayya, for taking the time to discuss the rituals for the departed souls and the significance within the Sanatana Dharma. We look forward to learning more in the upcoming sessions. Please note that there will be no session next week as the temple will be conducting its annual Guru Purnima celebration. On Guru Purnima, the temple cooks and serves food to the local shelters. We encourage every devotees, anyone who can attend the temple function for this auspicious occasion to join us next week on Guru Purnima. To access all content from prior sessions, please visit srividya.org/aym-lectures. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's session. At this time, we will hand it over to Vyasanna from Ashtanga Yoga Mandir to begin our yoga session.
Namaskaram, namaskaram. Namaskaram, Vyasa. Thank you very much for the beautiful gift of fruits. I'm enjoying them. They arrived today. Thank you. And one other thing, if some of your devotees want Diksha, exactly the way we did the Diksha ceremony, they can contact me and we can set it up for them.
வணக்கம் ஐயா.
வணக்கம்.
The sound mute பண்ணி இருந்தது, அதான் கலைக்க முடியல நீங்கள். நன்றி ஐயா. Yeah, we'll organize that ஐயா.
நன்றி.
Thank you.
Okay.
So pranams and namaskaram to Haranaya and all the devotees, members of the Sri Vidya Temple, and also all the members of the Ashtanga Yoga Mandir, and all the viewers. Pranams to Ayya and all of you all once again. And those who are comfortable, you are welcome to join their video on mode. And today we will be doing one practice which is called as the Yoga Mudra Asana. So it's called as the Yoga Mudra. This is generally you will see that this is just related to what Ayya was speaking in detail. That is basically you will see that after death has occurred in a house, sometimes those who are in the path of the yoga tradition, there is always a question when we can restart the yoga practice. So all these things, there's an elaborative explanation that those who are ardent practitioners is that this practice of yoga mudra is always done. So after the basic rituals all have been completed, you will be able to start. And generally it is said that you start the practices with the yoga mudra. Yoga mudra is the first practice which is generally done. This has this little bit relevance, so I thought I would just touch base on that. So all of you know how to do the yoga mudra, and the yoga mudra can be done from the chair also. It can be done from the bed also, and or you can come into the seated position and do it. So in the yoga mudra, you will see that sometimes we can do yoga mudra in Vajrasana also. So sometimes you will see some in places it is called as yoga mudrasana, and then some places it's called as the yoga mudra. And then how do you do it is basically all of you know, and we will just go through the practice. So you will be in this position. So if you're like this, so this is the Padmasana position, and then you will be holding the hand in this position behind. So you will be holding. So there is also a system, like, you know, in a general aspect, you will see they will tell you to hold it like this. And generally in the Hatha Yoga Sampradaya, we tell you to hold the hands like this. Understand? The hand comes in the Adi Mudra, and then you hold it. And sometimes very important that this is the middle finger, it intends to touch the thumb. So it is a lock which takes place. Understand? So this is how the hand is there. Okay. So all of you know it. So you will come up, you bring the, so you can hold it like this. But what is important, you need to adjust the thumb, bring it like this, and then hold it. And then from here, you hold it like this. Same way you do it in the behind. Okay. And then from here, you will slowly start breathing out. And then you will breathe down based on your comfortability. You can also do this practice while seated on the chair also. Even in case if you are not able to do the Padmasana, hold it, because here what is most important, the two important practices is, one is the position of the leg. As important, this position is also important. These both are equivalent. So in case because of various things, if you are not able to do the Padmasana, ensure that you are able to do the yoga, this position perfectly, right? So slowly come to the seated position. And then when you are doing this whole process, those who are comfortable, your starting point of drishti will be in the Mooladhara chakra. And when the body moves forward, you focus on the Ajna chakra. So you will be doing 12 times forward and backward. And then you will be in the final posture down, where sometimes the forehead may touch. If the forehead doesn't touch, you can keep a cushion and make yourself comfortable and then be in that position. And that time you will be focusing on the Ajna chakra. So this is the whole process of the practice. So slowly come into the Padmasana position. Those who can. You will take hold of the hand behind. You will be bringing the awareness on the Mooladhara chakra. You will slowly inhale and exhale, go down. Inhale slowly up. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Ensure that your movement is very relaxing. Ensure that your position is comfortable. And slowly, little by little, you will be starting to add the Dirgha Swasa in the process. Expand your shoulders. When it comes into the awareness, you will have the awareness. When it comes into the Annamaya Kosha, you will have the awareness on the back, abdominal, or breathing. And when it comes into the other one, you will have the focus on the Manipura chakra. So basically, those who are having a serious eye, or if anyone has any serious heart conditions, sciatica, with high blood pressure, or those who have had any early post-operative or post-delivery period, then they need to avoid these practices. So you will see that continue the practice with the breathing and ensure that the spine is straight when you are doing the whole process. So you can see this is one of the best practices in massaging the abdominal organs and any indigestion, constipational issues. You can see that it stretches the back, freeing the spinal nerves, which engages from the space between the vertebra, and then thus contributing in such a great way for your health. And this Yoga Mudrasana is one of the practices which supports and awakens the Manipura chakra. And now slowly be there down. Take deep breathe in, breathe out. Nicely inhale and ensure. What is most important is that you need to ensure that you are able to have the Dirgha Swasa. If you are able to have the Dirgha Swasa, it is wonderful. If not, you can go ahead with the normal breathing. Sugat swasam. That is a normal breathing. And just observe yourself, the breath has any slight block or any lock or any sort of hurdle when you are doing the breathing. So when in this position in the yoga mudra, this is also one of the best asana which we use for yogic health assessment to know the pranic flow of whether the prana is getting blocked anywhere. So once you know the dirgha swasa, you just adapt the dirgha swasa, and in the dirgha swasa, when you focus completely, you will see whether there is any sort of block, slowingness, any of those concerns. And then based on that respective area, you can go on doing the specific asanas to release that. Either it can be in the cardio system or in the respiratory system. And now gently come up. Slowly come up. Keep your eyes closed and focus in the Ajna chakra in between the eyebrow region. Observe the deep breathing. For men, this is one of the best asanas which is always prescribed after the passage of 40 years of age. And now slowly we will do the Brahmari breathing. Take a deep breath. Slowly do the farming. Slowly tap your shoulders. So in the Brahmari, those who are in early stages of yoga practice, 9 to 12 is fine. Those who have been practicing for more than a year, 15 count of Brahmari is important. Those who are into the Hatha Yoga culture or as yoga instructors, 27 to 35 is your basic standards. So that is, so how do you take it? Just observe, just to show you. Take a deep breath. This is for yoga people, Hatha Yogis. When you do 35, immediately you need to take a deep breath and then go into the next breath, thing. Others, if you're doing 9 to 12, you just keep continuously doing the practices. So thank you very much for joining the sessions, all of you all. And thank you and pranams to my Guruji, Haranaya, and all the lovely devotees and the members of the Sri Vidya Temple, and all the members of Ashtanga Yoga Mandir, and all those who are viewing these sessions via Facebook or later. Thank you. We'll finish the session. Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you and God bless you.